Okay, so in this video, we're actually going to deploy that web part so that way we can use it as a standard web part. So the first thing we need to do, there is actually a couple of new switches that are part of the gulp task that's going to allow us to build it. I currently right now have the mini context web part loaded in the editor. So let's go ahead and open this up on the command window. So let's just do reveal, then mini context, copy the path, and then just open this up in the command prompt. And I'm just CD and then Control V to paste into it. And basically all we have to do, let's just confirm everything is working as expected. I think in the last video we left with a working project. Just make sure there's no build errors. Okay, and actually while we at it, let's just take a quick look at this. So let's do a gulp serve and no browser. And we just want to launch this up in our tenant, the workbench on the tenant, to make sure everything is looking great. So that way, if we have an issue with deployment, we know that we're at least starting with a nice working and running project. So here's the tenant that I'm going to deploy to. Go to underscore layouts, then workbench. I have my node server running. And okay, so this is working. This is pretty much where we left off. Now, what we want to do, we want to deploy this web part in a standard web part page and have it live right alongside of the other web parts. So to do that, it's actually, it took me a little bit to, I got to be honest, it took me a little bit to understand what was going on here because in short, what we want to do, we want to deploy this to the tenant. And the first time we deploy it, we're going to run this using localhost. So we still want to have to launch gulp serve and have the local node server running because all of our references will still be against localhost. So let's go ahead and do that. So we just go to gulp and then we do a Control C to stop this guy. And now you just want to do a gulp package solution. Okay, and what this is going to do, this is going to package the create a it used to be a SP app, but I think there's SP package file, and we can deploy this in our app catalog. So let's go ahead and to the app catalog, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to just launch this into a new tab, and my app catalog lives at sites apps. Okay, so you probably have to go into the SharePoint admin and take a look and see where your app catalog lives. If you do not have one, go ahead and create one. I think that's something we've done in a prior video. So all we want to do is just go to our apps for SharePoint, and you're really just going to deploy this like you did with a standard add-in. This is me playing. I actually need to blow this guy away. So let me, and I will walk through towards the end of the video how to remove it because it wasn't intuitive to me at all how to actually remove solution files. So we can blow this guy away as well. And this is just me, practicing this deployment process in the same tenant. So there's some residue left from there. Okay, so once we have this, what you want to do is go to your project folder. And once you do that, go package solution, it creates this SharePoint folder. And then in that solution subfolder is this mini contacts package. So you really just simply drag and drop this guy over. And if everything goes well, it should go to deploy. Now, this screen is very important because we're going to touch many different layers of the different types of deployments you can do. And I'll explain the differences between the two, between all three of them as we progress. This guy shows you where your JS files must live or where your application is looking for your JS files that will actually have obviously the guts or the engine to your web part. So right now this is telling us hey, it's going to be looking at localhost for this guy to run. We say, okay, we expect that. So we go ahead and deploy. And this guy is up there. So now if we go to our website and we go to site contents, and then just click add, and just say from your organization. So that's going to filter that list for me, and the mini contacts client side solution. This is the app right here, and we just click on this guy to activate it. And this is standard SharePoint stuff. This is nothing new for SPFx, right? And activating the app. Now, when you activate this, every web part that you have part of that solution file or that solution is going to get deployed, and it's available for use now. So now if we go to home, and then if we edit this page, hit the plus sign, we should see our mini contacts web part, which is there. Now this should error out only because we do not have the node server running in the background. So it's looking for it. So let's go ahead and get that running. So we just do gulp serve, very similar to how we did before, the no browser switch. And this should go ahead and get our server running, and it should serve up the files for us. And then it go ahead, let me hit publish, and hopefully this guy should kick in. So here's our error message. Let me do a Control F5. And this guy hopefully should start working. There we go. So now we're working. And to confirm this, you can just go to Inspect and then go to Network. Filter on JS because we want to see where the JS files are being pulled from. Hit refresh so it gets the latest and greatest while that window is open. And then I use this filter box here, and then I'm gonna just type in mini because I know that my JS files will start with mini contacts. And as you hover over, you get the absolute URL to that JS file, and it shows us pulling from localhost. Okay, so this is great. So the question is going to be, okay, why would you even push this to localhost to where you're still in development mode? Part of that is there's several reasons for that. One, this is the first chance you get to see this alongside with existing pages before you actually deploy this for prime time, or deploy all the pieces for it to be used in prime time. So you can take a quick look at it, see how it looks. Ideally, you probably will do this in a sub-site that's not readily accessible to everyone in the organization. The home page of the intranet is probably not the best place for that. And there's a couple of changes I want to make. I mean, when we drop this in, we want this to look as natural as possible along with the other UI and the other web parts that you get out of the box. Like, we don't want our web part to stand out to say, hey, I'm custom, even though it is providing additional information or functionality that we just don't have out of the box. And the first thing that points out to me is that the web part title does not seem to have the same format and size and really font and that nature as the other ones. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at news and come over here and steal this definition. Let's steal this style here, okay? And then let's go back into the project. And because we're running this in localhost, I can still make changes to my project, go back, hit refresh without having to redeploy, and really see what my changes look like right alongside of the other web parts on that page. So very, very nifty and very cool way to really finalize your development before you push it live. So, okay, so in order to get this work, this is where we kind of left off last time. So we have our overrides, right? And we have our standard web part styles. And to the point I was trying to make in the last video, we want to keep this intact, because if we're styling something that's where we're not overriding the Office UI Fabric component, let's go ahead and keep that in your standard module SAS. So I'm gonna remove all of this out of the box stuff that we get, and I think we're putting let's take a look, where are we setting the title? So we're setting the title under the contact card in our child control, and we're using the H2 to render that. So what we want to do, let's override our H2 and make it look like an out-of-the-box web part title. So let's go back into the module. Let's define a definition for H2. Let's paste in everything that we got from the browser here. Seems like the font weight 300 has been overridden. Someone accidentally defined that twice. So we want to have that set to 100. 21 has been overridden because it seems like 24 has been set here. So let's go ahead and set this to 24. Okay, it looks like we have too many closing curly brackets. Let's save this off. Okay, and if I remember correctly, we are not bringing in, we're not setting the styles. Yeah, we're not setting the styles on the component. So let's set the styles on the container component, which is there. And I couldn't figure out the CSS, so I was able to do some research and get the answer to that. So in order to set this up, basically what you have to call the CSS function, and that's going to do the concatenation at runtime. Without the CSS function, it does not understand our styles variable because we have to work it in one way to pass the syntax check or the build check, but at runtime it doesn't render correctly. So we have to have the special CSS function in order to make that work. And that's out of the React library. So if we go to Office UI Fabric, the Office UI Fabric library, let me see, I gotta find a reference to that. All right, so it's in this guy here. So let's copy this. Let's go to our container component and let's do an import. Let's leave this blank for now. Get rid of this. All right, and then we want to pull CSS from here. All right, so if we pull this guy in, and again, this is in the tic-tac-toe video, so it's just CSS, whatever we're hard coding in. So it'd be this guy. Then we use single quotes, comma, and then whatever variables or styles that you want to bring in from your style module. And in this case, it's just going to be mini contact. Okay, so just to recap, what I'm bringing in is this main container here for my CSS, and then anywhere where I have, I'm just tagging this by element. So anywhere I have an H2 tag I'm being leveraged, it's going to pick up this that style definition there. So let me save everything, and let me scoot this over to the left here so I can monitor it, see if I get any build errors, and then go back to the browser, hit refresh. There we go. So now our contact is, our header, our web part title is looking just like the out of the box ones, right? Just a more natural fit. Maybe a little extra spacing here at the bottom, but obviously we can go back and play around with that until we get things the way that we want. So let me update this title to be key contacts. Let's just leave it at that and hit apply. All right. So now this is working as beautifully, actually. All right. So obviously, okay, so those are I think that's the one step of deployment. The next step of deployment is to actually deploy to our document library. Now, this is something that I learned during this process of trying to get the CDN to work. Now, out of the box, well, I say out of the box with the project template, and what most of the tutorials, what you will see is you build your web part, and then after you build the web part and you're ready to deploy it, you do the package solution, which we went through, and then you do a gulp ship, and then you set up all of your Azure storage components, right? And basically what is going to happen is that the package piece or the main container of the web part gets deployed through the app catalog, and then that solution has all the web parts that are part of that solution, and then users can use it. But each one of those web parts are going to reference a JS file or CS file or any other dependencies that you may include. And when you do that, those have to live somewhere, right? Those are not deployed with your package web parts. So like only the definition. So through the tutorials, you will see that we go through the deploy Azure storage. We populate all this information after we create a storage account in Azure and all this other good stuff. But that's kind of heavy-handed. Basically, for just hosting JS files, and really that's all we're doing. And we can basically host those directly within a document library. So let's go ahead and do that first, and then I will show you how to host it in o365 using the out-of-the-box CDN capability, which was just released like 4 to 6 weeks prior to this video. So let's go to site contents, and basically all we're going to do is actually bear with me for a second. Let me kill this browser, all instances of Google Chrome, only because when I open up that site contents page, it's still open up in classic mode. And there's a reason for that, and we'll touch on that. So just bear with me for a second. Let me get this back running and see. All right, so that's modern. Site contents. Okay, so now we're back. All right, so let's go ahead and deploy this as a CDN. So the first thing we need to do is to, not CDN, I'm sorry, as the document library. So now let's do a gulp, and it's called package solution. Package solution. Oh, wait. The first thing you have to do is a gulp ship. And I think you have to do these in order, because when it builds the package solution, I think it looks locally to get the latest and greatest reference. So you're going to do a gulp ship, and basically what that's going to do, that's going to tell the project to use the CDN URL. Oh, which we did not do. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped some. I was thrown off when I reboot the browser. So the first thing we need to do is create our CDN library. Sorry. All right, so let's just go to, that's why we went to contents. We're just going to name this CDN, and this is going to be a standard library, right? So just name it CDN, hit create. Now, ideally, this library can host our asset files or JS files, CSS files, or whatever for any number of web parts. So what we want to do, let's just put a folder just for our mini contacts web part, right? And then we'll dump everything that we need right here in this folder. And now in the mini contacts, let's open up this project. We need to come up here in the, I keep losing where this thing goes. Package solution, nope. Write manifest. Okay, so in the write manifest, we have to give it the URL of what we need our JS files to prefix with when we do a gulp ship. Because when you do a gulp ship, it replaces the JS file references with the prefixes defined here. And then when you do a gulp package solution ship, it creates that package referencing those files, right? So let's go ahead and I think I said that backwards. When you do a gulp package solution ship, it replaces your JS references within your web part with the CDN prefix. All right, so what we want to do, our guy is going to be CDN / mini contacts, because we want to point to that folder. So let's just paste this guy in here, and then mini contacts folder, in with a / and then remove the placeholder text. Okay, so let's save that. Now let's do a gulp ship, and that's going to get our JS files minified and bundled and all this other good stuff. And all right, so this is still working. All right, and then let's do a gulp package ship. Now the order of, and it's important that you put package solution and then the ship switch, or else it will not package the solution. I had to learn that the hard way. Solution. I can't spell for whatever reason. All right, so you have to put the package solution before the ship, or else it just does a gulp ship and then it ignores the package solution command. Okay, so then we go ahead and execute that. All right, so the gulp package ship is done. Let me try that again, just to be sure. Okay, so now if we go to our project, many contacts, as before, this guy is available under the SharePoint folder, and all we want to do is go ahead and dump that into new tab here, our app catalog. So sites, apps, that guy here, and then go apps for SharePoint, and let's just dump this guy there. And then replace it. And you don't have to uninstall the old one. You can just drop it right on top. It will redeploy because it detects changes, and it will get the deploy option, and it will push it out. Now the second piece, so now if we go to before we go into the second piece, if we go to our web part, we should get an error. And if we inspect this, the error hopefully is you're pointing to CDN/many contacts, but there are no files there because we didn't upload yet. So we should be getting 404s here. Good. So our CDN path is working, and yep, the prefix is formatted correctly. We don't have double wax or anything like that, so everything looks good. So only thing left is to go ahead and upload the files here, right here in this many contacts folder. Now the files we need to upload are going to be located under the temp folder. So if you go to the root of your web part project, go under temp and then deploy, you want to move all 3 of these files there. And again, it's a simple drag and drop. And it should get uploaded. You know, and check-in is not required, and we don't have publishing or approval process enabled. So these should be ready to go. And if you come here and hit refresh, our web part pops up. And just to confirm everything, confirm the confirmation, confirm the confirm. Yeah, so all this is pulling from the CDN, right? Now, it's pulling from the library that we named CDN. This is not truly a CDN, okay? The true CDN, what will happen is that the domain will be different than the abcphotos.sharepoint.com, because a true CDN will serve up these JS and CS files and whatever from a different location, allowing you to do multiple downloads at once. If they come from the same domain, then I think you're only given like 4 to 8 files that you can go simultaneously. But when you include a different domain, you double that, right? So now you can really increase it, especially if you have a lot of web parts on this page and you have, you know, everyone was leveraging the CDN, you can really optimize your download processing. So in order to get this to a true CDN, what we would have to do is to go and enable the CDN for o365 or for a tenant. And the best way to do that is that I actually have some shortcuts here because I've done it. But for you to get started and to really understand the process, just do a o365 CDN, a Google search on that. You're going to come up with a lot of options. The one that you really want to focus on that is very helpful and targeted towards SPFx or SharePoint Development Framework is the one that starts with the dev.office.com website. So once you click on that, that's actually goes through the process. Really good job explaining the difference with the CDNs, the different switches. There is a private one, there's a public one. The private one will automatically update your URLs, but I think you have to do that within the context of a SharePoint page, meaning that if we had images and CSS files, or really images, right, for content pages stored in a CDN library, when we make a reference to that image in the CDN library, when you save that, SharePoint will automatically detect that, oh, this is a CDN URL. Let's replace it with the full private URL, private CDN. Now that's the private. Now the public one, anyone that knows that URL will be able to get access to that asset. Anyone within SharePoint. It doesn't, I don't think that it ties the security to your particular tenant. So you can reference an image file and someone from another tenant that's not authenticated to your tenant or authorized right through your tenant. I think they have to be authenticated within o365, but they do not have to be authorized to see that file from your tenant. So it really opens it up like, okay, anyone who's authenticated, right, because you pass the .sharepoint.com origin, a domain origin check. If you pass that, then they're going to serve up the file to you. The one thing about a public CDN, you cannot access it outside of SharePoint. So they do have a domain origin check, but the security on if making that file secure, like only everyone within this tenant or only site owners defined in the SharePoint group, or all those other SharePoint security mechanisms are not in play. That's my understanding. I really haven't tested that extensively, but definitely read those articles and the walkthrough on how to do that, and that would kind of give you a better understanding. But neither here. So for our intents and purposes, we're going to set up a public CDN for that CDN library. And to get started, what you probably want to do is to make sure you have the latest and greatest PowerShell plugin is to download the SharePoint Online Management PowerShell, which gets updated frequently. And just go through this download and install the one that's right, 64-bit or 32-bit. I've already went through this process, but really it's very simple. You just double click on it, execute it, next, accept the terms of use, and you're done, right? It's really that simple. Now to use it, I am a huge fan of the Windows PowerShell ISE because of all the IntelliSense that it provides you. And you can sort these modules based on the ones that you are interested in. So in our case, it's going to be the Microsoft Online PowerShell, and this is going to give me all the different options for SharePoint Online. And I can further filter this on like CDN. Oops, if you spell it right. CDN. So really it's going to be these 8 or 9 switches that are available here. So the first thing we have to do is connect to our SharePoint Online. So we have to get authenticated. And so I just use this guy here and type in connect. Really just follow what they're saying, and then IntelliSense kicks in. So connect, and it said what's the URL, and what it's looking for is the admin, the SharePoint admin URL for your tenant. And that's going to be abcphotos-ad admin, .sharepoint.com. And then I just get to authenticate this way. o365.how. All right, so now I'm authenticated. So I'm in, I have a connection to my tenant. And now let's take a look at the other, let me type in CDN, all the other switches. Now you can add, so the way it's set up is origin. So The CD origins is the key. The CD origins is where you tell the CDN feature to say, hey, enable CDN capabilities to these libraries. And right now it's only by library. I don't think there's a CDN option for the list. So you can enable it by the library, and you specify the path to the library. And if you specify it at the root, then any subfolder and all this other good stuff is going to be automatically CDN enabled. You can also do as a subsite, and if you just do as that site, like if you do asterisk and then the name of the site, every document library within that site will automatically be CDN enabled. So if you're dealing with a subsite and that's all that subsite's about, then it probably will make sense to go ahead and CDN enable it. So let's take a look at some of the other switches in detail. First thing we can do is, hey, let's see what do we have enabled by default. So we can do this get SPO tenant CDN enabled, get SPO tenant CDN enabled, and then there's a switch that says which type. And you only have two options here, public or private. So let's see if private's enabled. And if you're kind of familiar with like the Office web app where it had like two zones, this is kind of very similar to that type zone with the private and public. So the private zone is disabled. Let's double check the public. And the public zone is disabled. Okay, so let's go ahead and enable the public. So what we have to do is, what's the one for enabling? Hold on, how do I get rid of this? I want to get rid of that screen, execute the search again. There we go. All right, so to set it, you do set SPO tenant SDN enabled, right? So if we just change this to set, and we want to enable the public side. All right, so now this is the one that was scary for me, right? When you enable the CDN public site, you automatically enable the root directory for the master page, the master page for the root site collection and the style library for the root site collection. And this is something that we do not want to enable because this is public and users with anonymous access that are not necessarily authorized to see this will be able to see those files. I'm very uncomfortable with allowing that. So what I want to do is remove those two that get enabled by default. So you can do a remove SPO tenant SDN. So let's do remove SPO tenant CDN, right? And then the switch is the origin, and you're just going to mimic that that path there. So star whack master page to disable these, and then I think you have to specify that it is in the public zone. Yes to all. And the cool thing about it, once it executes, it spits out to say, okay, now this is what all you have enabled now. So master page went away, so now we want to do the exact same for style library. Because there's a space in style library, we have to put this in quotes. Okay, so now nothing else is enabled for public, right? So now if we do what's enabled for public, oh no, this is to confirm it is enabled. So to see which, get SPO public CDN origins. Just thinking, hold on. Yeah, this is just going to confirm that that zone is enabled. It's not going to confirm which your CDN origins or which URLs are authorized for CDN capabilities. This thing is still thinking. Okay, so we did all that because we typed in the wrong thing. Okay, so get SPO tenant CDN origins for the public zone. What's enabled? Nothing. Okay, so now what we want to do is set our CDN origin for so set SPO tenant CDN, no, add, sorry. This is an add command. So add SPO tenant CDN origin for, and this is going to be star WAG CDN library, right? So we want to do the entire CDN library on the root web of the root site collection. If there was a subsite, then we would do sites, and then let's say ABC, if the subsite was ABC, and then CDN would be the library under that subsite. If we wanted to do the entire subsite or all libraries within that subsite, we would end the switch here. So that's how you kind of use that wildcard depending on how deep in the hierarchy you want to go. So this, in our case, we just want to do CDN, so the library on the root site, and we want to do this for the public site, right? Hit yes to all. All right, so now that's set up and it's, the configuration is pending. All right, so while that's working, let's go ahead and adjust our CDN path within our solution. Now, let me just pop open Notepad here. I think I still have this here. Yep. Okay, so what we end up doing was, this is still a non-CDN one, right? It still works, right? Again, you don't have to enable CDN just to work with this, especially if you're doing something very simple and the organization is small. You may not get a big bang for your buck. But if you have a lot of folks in the organization where this has been hit on consistently, and you have a lot of web parts on the page, enabling CDN and pulling your JS files and all that stuff from a CDN makes sense. So non-CDN path, right? And then this is going to be our CDN path. Let's just say true CDN path. Now the true CDN path looks like this. They all start with this prefix, public cdn.sharepoint.online. And then in the middle piece, this would be your tenant, right? Obviously without the HTTPS piece. And then after that, it's going to be whatever directory or site collection or subsite or whatever, the path to the actual CDN. So this is all we have to reference here. But in our case, we have to go one level deeper and tell it to do the many contacts, right? Because what we're going to do is just replace this in our project for the CDN path property. So take this guy. Actually, let me just take it from here, because really that's the piece that we want to replace. So I took it from CDN, and I should back up all the way up to CDN. Okay, so this should do the trick. So now we're actually pulling from the CDN. We're following the URL format, and we're targeting the directory that we specified. And now we have to repackage everything, which is not a big deal, right? So we do, again, go do the gulp ship first. And then after you do the gulp ship, then you do the gulp package solution ship. So this is thinking. All right. And now we want to do this guy. And then we just run through the exact same process. So now we just go to our directory. Here's our deploy files. If you hit refresh, you should see so these guys got updated within a minute ago. And all we have to do is go to, again, this is our CDN library. This is our mini contacts folder. Just replace these guys. All right. And now what we need to do is go to the app catalog and then drop in the updated version for our package file, which is just going to be this guy. Okay. And then it's going to ask us to deploy it. Okay. And now if we go to today highlights, hit refresh, we actually may get an error because I think once you enable the CDN, it takes it a while to propagate. So if you get into 406, that's actually a good thing. It just means that it looks like the path is correct, but the CDN has just not propagated yet. And I think it takes about 10 minutes or so to get through. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just pause this video. And then once this is working, I'll restart it and then we'll confirm everything's working and then we'll go from there. So let me just pause it. Okay, so finally the files are now returning the status code of 200. Took about 10 to 15 minutes almost to check. And then another thing to keep an eye on is that when you do this test, as far as like refreshing, sometimes you have to do a control F5 in order for it to kind of go back and give you a real response of the status of the files in the web part. So I think that's it for this video. Hopefully this add a little bit of clarification on the 3 different ways that you can actually do a package solution out into the tenant. Just to recap, the first time we did it, we were able to do a package solution, still point to localhost. That's great for any other additional tweaking and development. You can do those code changes without having to redeploy. But once you're fine with it and you're ready for prime time, you really actually have 2 options. You can do a CDN approach to where you actually push that out, and we talked about that and how you had to reformat the URL to actually be pulling from the CDN, or you can just push these out to a standard document library without CDN enabled, and as you saw, things work fine. Will there be a performance gain, CDN versus document library? Absolutely, but it really depends on like how significant that performance gain would be. It has a lot of factors in it, and I think part of it is how many people are actually on your tenant and actually using the intranet, and then also how many web parts you have on that page before I think the performance increase to be significant enough to notice the difference. Oh yeah, there was one thing I did want to show. How to uninstall these web parts, right? Or how to uninstall the SharePoint development solution that houses all of these web parts. Now, when you go to, as a site owner or site or the content site collection manager, you can go to site contents, and what we can do is just click on this to remove it. Now, to my surprise, in order to remove this, the remove option is not there. And that's why when I launched the browser, this was in classic mode, because that's exactly what you have to do. You have to switch over. Uh-oh, my browser's locked up. Let's refresh this guy. But basically, you switch over to classic mode, and then you have the option to remove it. And then once it's removed from the site, and what that does is, let me just talk about removing it. So once you remove this from this app from your actual site, it will remove all instances of the web part from those respective pages. And that's my understanding. You know, based on when I looked it up, that's what it said it would do. I haven't tested it out. Like I haven't, added this web part to 20 pages within the site and then removed it and see if it's removed from all 20 pages. If it does, I think that would be sweet, because we know in the classic web part, when you try to like deactivate a feature or if you remove a web part, you get the assembly reference not found or things along those lines. So this is going to remove it from here, and once this is complete, you can go to the home, and where we had an instance of that web part, that should be gone now. Everything is super slow. Yeah, I have to do another. If you've been following my LinkedIn posts, I actually did implement the Google Wi-Fi, the home Wi-Fi with a 3-pod setup, and I have to do a review on that. That's unfortunately that's part of my problem. Well, I think it is. I think it is. But anyway, so as you can see here, the web part is removed. So that's good to go. And now if we actually want to remove this guy altogether, we can just go to the app catalog and then actually do a delete. And then that's going to remove it. Now, order of operation, if you delete this without actually removing it, and then um, I still don't think you get an error. You still will not receive an error, and I think the web part is still pulled out, but you get a shadow or a grayed out version of that app in that list of view of list and libraries. It still exists there, which is kind of messy, right? Another thing I wanted to point out, if you're kind of like me, once you kind of go through this process and understand the hierarchy, that oh, we named this mini contacts as a solution, but really this is just a container, right? So when you create these guys by default, that's what happens, right? It's almost like Visual Studio. When you create in a project, it names the solution after the name of that first project. But once you get deep in here, naming the solution mini context may not make sense because you have web parts that are all across the board. Um, so in order to change that, you just go to the config, and I think it's here in the config JSON. Nope. Assets, package solution. No. Write manifest. Nope. Serve.js. No. Not TS-Lint. Okay, I passed it. Is it config? Nope. Nope. Package solution. Yeah. Package solution. So in the package solution, this name right here, this is your, as it says here, that's where you can do your solution. And then if you wanted to trigger the upgrade option, and this is the piece I still haven't figured out. I may have to play around with this a couple of times just to make sure this works as I expect it to work. But ideally, you're going to run into this scenario. Say, for example, we push out the 1.0 version of mini contacts, but then we come back in and we change the format, right? Maybe we, instead of having the profile pic at the top, we want to move that back to the left, and we probably want to add additional attributes, and instead of displaying 3 on the row, we want to display 6. Well, that probably go out as a 1.5 version of the mini contact. Now, from a user perspective, you want to give them the option, right? So when you deploy this out, you want to give them the option that says, no, I'm okay with the 1.0 version because our users within this site are used to that. Or no, I want the new look. So yeah, give me the new look. So they want to do the 1.5. So you want to give them the option to upgrade or not. And I trigger this, and they do get the upgrade option, but then again, they also get the updated JS files as well, even without going through the actual upgrade. So you have the 1.0 shell, but you get the 1.5 JS files, which I thought was disturbing. But I'll keep playing around with that. Maybe I overlooked something, or maybe inadvertently I hit upgrade when I was testing this out. But I will confirm that. But that's ideally just, if you're controlling the version count here, it should trigger the upgrade prompt for the site owner, and they should have control over which version of that web part that they want. Um, but back to my original point. So if you go, like, once this solution is created and we're kind of taking on those default values when we do the Yeoman generator for this project, maybe we want to call this something as like enhanced communication web parts, right? This is the name of the solution that we want to have, and then mini contact of others would probably just be one of that. And then also you can come up here and upgrade the and change the package name, right? Enhanced com web parts, or something along those lines. Um, but the problem with, and this is why I had to go through the uninstall process, because this ID here remained the same, even though you changed the package name, you got a new instance, right? It did add a second entry, but when it came down to the site perspective, things got nasty really quick, because it was like, well, this internal ID, which is probably what they're using to track the app and all the web parts associated to that solution app, um, it came over with a new name, but certain things didn't update, and it just seemed really messy. So to back out of that, right, to say, hey, I want to deploy this with the new name, even though the GUID and all this other thing is the same, I just wanted to make it more user friendly or business friendly from an app catalog perspective. Then that's why I wanted to retract it all the way, do my renaming, and then redeploy it and start over for fresh. So that's how I got into the uninstall or deployment option, undeployment option. All right, so that's it for this video for real now. All right, that was the bonus. Okay, catch you later. Take care.